Hello, and welcome. Welcome on into the Swear Word. I'm your host, Brandon Swear, and hey, this is a podcast for the Chilihead community, by the Chilihead community. Regardless of your spice tolerance, this is the place for you. Man, we have an amazing episode here tonight. We are jumping back at it with a very fun guest, locked and loaded. No hot or not tonight, but we're going to be diving into some great discussion. So episode 109 starts now. What's going on, Swear Nation? So glad to have everyone here rocking and rolling. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube, Spotify, Rumble, Apple Podcasts, thank you so much for being here, making the show what it is, and continue to share this out with other like-minded individuals or chiliheads or anyone that's curious even about the world of hot, because this is where you can find everything to do with the world of hot. Up tonight, we have a very fun episode here tonight. We have Jake Cole. We're going to be talking everything that he's got going on. We've had him on before, so we're going to dive a little bit deeper this time and also catch up on everything that has happened since the last time he was on the podcast. So we'll be diving into some great discussion there. And I wanted to remind everyone as well, as new features slowly start to get ready to roll out for the Swear Word website, I will be informing everyone there. But you can still head on over to theswearword.net and check out as far as the merch store as well as becoming a citizen of Swear Nation. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump on over to the interview. Jake, how's it going?
What's up, Swear? What's up, dude? How you been, man?
Man, doing good. You know, it's been nice. I've kind of given everyone a chance to kind of breathe, if you will. I know the guests aren't always coming up here back to back, but for me to be able to just kind of take a different path for just a short period of time, it's refreshing to jump back into the interview side of things and really be able to, enjoy the interviews even more, right? So it's been great. Hopefully everything's going great with you. I've been seeing some amazing stuff online and can't wait to dive back into, everything you got going on.
Yeah, man. This should be fun, man. Thanks for having me back on. It's been a hot minute, so I appreciate you, diving back in. I know you and I were kind of talking a little bit behind the scenes here before we hopped on, so I'm curious to see where this goes and just dive into the world of the Mighty Duck to see what we got going on.
Absolutely. You know, it's definitely going to be fun, and it's something that I've kind of alluded to, and I think there's maybe been 3 others that have kind of come on multiple times in a way that, so I always try to set up that really at first episode of meeting somebody, really to gain a backstory of kind of what their timeline has been or overall journey in the pepper scene. And I really like to be able to have the fun and flexibility in those subsequent episodes after to really get to understand them better and kind of find out other things that just, make them tick and what they enjoy and really have a lot more fun and cutting up in that way. So definitely excited to jump into that here tonight. But obviously cannot miss what we were talking about ahead of time. And that's just, nerding out and being excited about your newest pepper / newest sauce. Newest pepper in the sense that, not everyone's very familiar with this, but I had the pleasure of at least eating one, enjoying one, and finding out how blistering hot an orange pod can get. So, yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. So that was one of the things that I was always looking into. You have some of these like blistering super hot pods. So, I sent you a Dragon Tolly, which is just, blistering. I put a lot of focus on chocolate primo tallies just because they're so blistering hot. They got a lot of punch to them, very typically oily, but not everybody is a chocolate fan as far as say earthiness taste to them. We go back to Ryan Thomas over at Cap Crew when we're talking hates chocolate pods, hate chocolate pods. So it was like, all right, how can I get the heat and get that blistering sense to it, but trying to mix and match some different, pods to kind of crossbreed with, add a little flavor to them, yet keeping some of the heat. So we were talking about, Sabotage here recently, which is a chocolate primatali, but I took an orange bootla and crossed in an orange bootla. Now, that first year or so when you're growing them out, you don't necessarily know if you're going to get those orange traits, you're going to get those chocolate traits to them. And I was fortunate enough, man, I got those blistering hot orange pods, give you some of that earthiness to it, but really packing the punch with those chocolate primatalis. That was the goal in mind when I was trying to cross that, and just I didn't know what kind of craze it was going to be. And you had the chance of trying them. There were a handful of people in Cap Crew that had a chance of trying them. Just a significant hit, and I was like, man, maybe I have something here with this a little bit, but trying to stabilize it from here on out. I'm taking precautions, using grow nets, making sure they're not cross-pollinating. I've tried to look through to make sure I'm getting some of the genetics and traits of those pods. So I got them out. I got 10-gallon grow bags this year, so I think I did a handful of plants trying to mix and match. Got the isolation nets up so we can kind of see if we can keep the momentum going on, because this is where it starts to get interesting is and all the growers can tell you, you can start out a couple years and then you get a year where those genetics just don't keep in, and it can be very agitating. So we'll see where we go with it this year, but that was the thought process kind of behind it, was getting the heat from some of those Superhot pods, but trying to get complexity and flavor instead of getting that floral earthiness. And I know you've hammered a handful of super hot pods over the year, like the reds. When you get super hots, they taste like potpourri. That bitterness, that floralness that kind of comes in hand with some of those. So that was kind of the thought process into kind of trying to create something that was super hot, but yet getting the flavor behind it. So
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you had mentioned obviously starting everything from a grow perspective this year. Definitely want to dive into that. But the genetics that you have had from this last season, I assume you still kept some of those seeds in case of this new generation having some kind of reversion or not quite as, on par with what you're tracking, right?
yeah. So I save a couple seeds from every plant that were grown out, trying to figure out a couple different plants. I grew a couple extra plants just to make sure, different plants, different pods to make sure, and trying to really hone in on the genetics of what you're trying to look for in those pods. So that's a little something that I was doing. I got handfuls of them out. They're all isolated, and kind of just trying to hone in to try to now stabilize what specifically I'm looking for within those pods.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have I have a handful. I would say I got a couple different bags, and I label them all different, like from first to later season. As some of the pods come out, and just really trying to hone in on the genetics of it. But you hope that you don't have to go back to the drawing board, and that's some of the stuff that keeps coming out. But like you said, I have a couple different um, peppers that I saved from, and hoping that if we have to go back, you're still getting some of the genetics of what came off of that first or second year of growing those pods out.
Yeah, yeah. I don't personally know it from the grower's perspective, from growing out something in that sense and really taking that time and care. But I have helped a few folks that had one in particular is etched in my brain forever. It was 2018, and there was a grower from, I want to say Michigan. I have it written down because I was helping him go back and forth. It wasn't anything like elusive or crazy or whatnot. He just wanted
Hmm.
it was a yellow Moruga crossed with a gosh, was it a Bootla? No, it was a Jay's Peach Ghost, and he was wanting like
Hmm.
a bright lime or a bright lemon yellow to the
Yeah.
overall look, and he wanted that wicked, Jay's Peach Ghost, the bumpy texture, the curvy tail, but he wanted it like the big genetics from the Moruga. And
Hmm.
man, oh man, it became like, all right, so it was like grow season, I think 2 or 3. And so there was like yellow Maruga 3 dash P1 dash P2, for all the different ones. He's like, all right,
Yep.
I need you to eat all of these consecutively and kind of tell me, give like a 30-minute buffer between, but tell me which one hit the hardest, how it hit, and so on and so forth.
Hmm.
And the level of detail and notes and writing and sending back, it was a lot of fun, but at the same time, blistering hot to dive into. Definitely because my normal mo was even still then not to prep, so it was a lot of times just on an empty stomach going pod after pod after pod. And then by the time it was
Hmm.
done, all I could think of was like, I should probably eat now. So,
No prep game is the worst. Like, I learned this hard years ago, and you're going back, man. So we have this pepper festival, Bowers Pepper Festival, and there's some awesome sauce companies there, and it's just in the middle of like nowhere. It's almost like farmlands, but they grow it out. And I mean, there's some decent vendors there, like Revolutionary, Jersey Barn Fire, Gemini Crow, Born to Hula. I mean, you could go on and on of the list of different ones like Angry Irishman, but years back, Pucker Butt used to go, and I remember walking around and I said, I'm just gonna go try some hot sauces, whatever. And I remember just going and they were handing out free samples of peppers, and I'm like, I haven't eaten, I'm good, just a cup of coffee. And I remember just hammering peppers back then, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh. And I came home and I wish I would have known now, being a little bit more seasoned in the pepper game. But coming home and just being curdled on the couch, just cramping like crazy on the couch, just being like, "All right, I just need this to be over." And I was like, "Never again." Prep game to a T, making sure that something's in the tummy every time because it is no fun, man. When on an empty stomach, it just burns the cramps. It's just awful. It is
yep.
awful, man.
I don't know what it is. I have my thoughts and my own personal breakdown of why I feel it works better for me, but it just doesn't add up. Like there's like a major disconnect in the math. But for some reason, it just seems to work out, quite a bit better in the overall after post effects, right? And
Yeah.
during. So it does suck anywhere from like 45 minutes. It really kind of depends how long it takes to digest. So it's either like 45 minutes of just having to clear my mind and breathe through the overall cramps and the rolling of that all, to even I've had a few times. One in particular that I can mention is well, actually, that was also so Pizza Extreme was probably the most rough 50 minutes of stomach rolling cramps,
That's that's a lot of
profusely
power though,
sweating.
man.
Yeah, it was also like a super time delay because I ate it at 11. And then I remember looking at my clock in my truck as I'm driving home in 110-degree heat. And my air was going in and out of the Suburban at the time. And so it was like every time it would kick off, I was like sitting there just sweating already from the heat and then sweating from the cramps and the peppers or the powder in there. And it was just like, oh my gosh, it was agonizing. I had to pull over just to jump out of the truck to feel air hitting my face from, not that stale air that's recirculating through the car. So,
Yeah.
oh
Yo, that's funny though because like I watch we were watching where were we? I think we were at New York City Hot Sauce Expo. This was a couple years back, and they do those the competitions. And this guy's walking around because the one chocolate bar challenge that they did, and he's eating, and he's bragging about eating 36 chocolate bars, and we're telling him, I was like, buddy, you better get that up now, or you're gonna be hurting
yeah,
bad. And we're laughing because about 30 minutes later, there's this commotion. And I mean, you're outside in front of thousands of people, and he's curled up on the ground to the point that they called an ambulance. And he was taking pictures with his check, holding his check up, and then all of a sudden, like a half hour, 45 minutes in an ambulance because he was cramping so bad. I was like, dude, sometimes you just gotta get it up.
yep,
And people just don't understand that. Like, you can't just go in there like, oh, wing competition, and then you don't eat prior to going in. It was like, yo, you should put at least like pretzels or something in you and hammer them out.
yeah.
So we're talking about prep games. So everybody kind of has their own niche to what they find is best. What is your go-to prep for if you're going to do something spicy? Like, what's your go-to prep? Because I've kind of come to a sense. So I like a peanut butter and jelly, some of that peanut butter, the bread, but I find like smoothies, milkshakes tend to go pretty well, and yogurt, something heavier that's kind of thick coating that kind of absorbs some of that. But everybody has their different, prep as to what they feel works best.
I've tried a lot of different things, and that's why I guess really my go-to prep, if you will, is just a cup of black coffee right beforehand, and just walking into it. But the times that it's been, I guess, more successful because there's been so many times where I will intentionally try to prep and everything will be great, and it is the worst time ever, both during and after. But the times that haven't been quite as bad are maybe whenever, like maybe with like a just a sole peanut butter and honey sandwich right beforehand, and that's
Hmm.
about it. But like even then, like I said, I try to avoid that because it's still not quite enjoyable. It feels like I don't know if it's the peanut butter that gets clung to the sides of my stomach and it is trapping all that heat, but it's just like it's the worst feeling ever. So I mean, and so on top of that, being lactose intolerant, I don't drink milk, so I've never cared for milk, and so I always avoid that.
Hmm.
And so there's that avenue's gone. Um, yeah, I think what was that Zest Fest? I think 2019 or 2020. Whatever. It was one of the last times they had it in the Irving Convention Center. I had gone through. I had done everything there, and then I ended up walking over to eat. I think I ate two of the death nuts or something like that. And then I had a fresh pod, and immediately was just like I was walking back through doing another round of sauce samples, and I could feel my stomach just churning because once again, nothing on the stomach, nothing all day. I'd been out there for a
Yep.
while, and somebody was walking by with frozen chocolate bananas, and I was like, and they also had frozen strawberries, and so I was like, give me one of each. I don't even care. And so like I wolfed down the strawberries, and that was the biggest letdown ever because they did absolutely nothing, and they were gone super quick. As to where at least the chocolate covered banana, there's like a lot more to it, right? And it had a
Hmm.
thicker chocolate coating on the outside. So it was
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
you had to slow down to eat it. And Man, that seemed to kind of take the edge off, if you will. But from a chase relief standpoint, that's been like the only successful
Hmm.
thing. Um, I have tried with tincture a few things to like chase after the fact, like going in no prep and then chase it after. And the things that seem to work the best have been like a greasy burger or like
Oh yeah.
a Reese's peanut butter cup, but obviously not Reese's.
Hmm.
I'll do like the ones where it's like whatever the someone else will make it, right, and it's just kind of like a thick slab of peanut
Yeah.
butter and a thick slab of chocolate,
Hmm.
and that's those tend to work out pretty well for a chasing effect.
Yeah. The sandwich effect, and people don't realize too, you typically need to sandwich. So, like, if you put it in, like, whatever you're going to do for your prep game, your heat, and then you want a sandwich on top of that to kind of compress the heat there a little bit. People tend to prep, but then don't prep after as well. Now, I mean, if you're doing spicy competitions where you're doing like pepper competitions, I mean, eating 50, 60 super hot, you're trying to get those up as quick as possible after, but we found sandwich action works pretty good too, padding that heat a little bit afterwards.
Yep, yep. And
Takes
like
the
even
edge
even
off.
that last time with that competition, I kind of had a feeling. Well, I always drink it anyways, but I brought that was a 32 ounce or 23. I don't know, whatever, like a 20 ounce or 30 ounce of kombucha, and I drank that. I was waiting around for like 20 minutes or so, just hanging out talking, and I was like, I should probably get this up because like I was
Oh
just
yeah.
not even there yet. And so I'm not one to boot. Like that's a rather challenging task typically for me to try to do. So I got that
Hmm.
knowing that it fizzes up, knowing that it expands when shaken. And so I slam it back as fast as I could and just stood over there by a tree, just jumping up and down until I felt the fizz and bubbles in the stomach. And I mean, it cleared it out in like 5 minutes. I was back to normal. It's like, all right, cool. It did its job.
Never would have thought you're like, I know I'm going to be hurting and I'm desperation mode. What can I specifically do to help make this process
Yep.
easier? It's like, and once it starts going, man, it's like the the cap cramps that you get in the stomach are just unbearable. It's like once they start kicking in, and then it feels like, all right, now you start going into panic mode because you're like, how long do I gotta endure this? Like, is it going to be short, like where I get like one or two, or is it like, are they just going to keep coming and coming and coming? And it's like, please, 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 God, just make it be like one or two and send me on my way instead of going for the ride of like hours of it. It's like, it's crazy.
Oh
It's
yeah.
crazy.
The first ever tuba terra that I did, I completed it all, but that was the worst. Like I didn't once again did not prep before this, did not know anything,
Hmm.
and like completed it, turned the camera off, super pepper high. That was my first experience of an endorphin dump from that, and
Hmm.
I thought I was on, I thought I was safe because I felt I had the hand jitters, the whole body was tingling, and I
Hmm.
was like walking around for about 30, 40 minutes, and then all of a sudden it just faded away, and it was the most agonizing. Then on top of that, as the endorphin dump was stopping, my wife was then more or less stoking the fire that was in my gut by saying, we're going on a walk. And so then we went on like a
Oh,
2.5 mile walk, and I'm
the
just
worst.
dying every 2 seconds. Just like I get a few steps in, just a few steps, and she's like, "Come on, you shouldn't have ate that then." And I was like, "Oh, just keep going and keep going."
Oh,
And then finally, I get to back to the house after this excruciating walk and almost losing it. and I get straight to the bathroom, and I go in there, and that cold tile is calling me, and I just go, down to nothing, and I'm just sitting there on the tile for the next 6 hours with 45 minutes of absolute pain, 15 minutes of pleasure, and then back to 45 minutes for 6-ish hours from there. It was absolutely insane. That was my
Riding the
first
wave,
experience with that.
man. Oh man, that is rough. There are some nights I think the one night I was bad and I was down and I just filled up the tub and just turned it on ice cold and was just hoping like, can I shock my body out of this just to get this to go? It's
Yep.
it's rough, man, riding the wave because once it comes, like we talk about, once it comes, you don't know if it's gonna be like, okay, 10 minutes and I'm good, or is this like I'm in for the long haul of like agony. And you can tell when it comes on because once it gets down, they talk about the whiskey chest
Yep.
where you get burning. And then all of a sudden, when it just sits in the stomach, you're like, all right, this can go one of two ways. Either I can just get this out and go ring a fire, right? Or it's going to hammer me on the way out and you're going to cramp. And it's like, just ring a fire. I'll take ring of fire any day of the week over cramping because cramping's unbearable, man. It's just brutal.
Yep. Well, that's why for a long time I ended up staging it to where I would do any kind of crazy pushes, definitely cap crew stuff that was like super intense. I would try to deliberately wait until it was late at night because I know that I typically now I will wake up somewhat during my sleep and I'll know that it's happening, but if I go to sleep, if I'm able to get to bed before the cramps actually take effect, then I can sleep through them. Sure, I might wake up, once or twice with like a 10-15 minute cramp wave, but it's so much less than being awake for the whole time. And so I started to get smart by strategically doing it that way. But
Hmm.
with the whole, tincture thing being relatively new to all that, really with the whole cap crew introduction, kind of really getting into, I'd
Yeah,
seen
yeah, yeah.
tincture, never really did it before, and then finally doing it and hearing from others, like getting that ball of hate. And I was like, I don't understand what this is. I don't understand what this is. And then my first introduction with the ball of hate was that solar flare, and
Oh, dude.
I had done the cross swords with both the dark, and I think the other one was like a
Oh.
yellow or orange, and
Hmm.
the first one it was fine, and then I went to go do another cross swords during the actual solar eclipse, and I immediately just felt this giant wad and swirl, and I was like, that's not the chest, that's like above the chest, what's going on here?
Oh,
And
dude, it's all esophagus, dude. With those tanks, dude, you can just feel it just like a smoldering ember from the back of the throat just straight down into the esophagus and the chest. And there's no padding whatsoever. It's just a straight shot down. Oh, that is one of the worst feelings. It's almost like that lump in your throat when it just hammers the esophagus. Oh, that's just awful.
yep. And it was at that moment that I was like, now I know what the ball of hate is, and I know I need to get this out ASAP. And so I'm pretty sure, well, there was a good portion of my office still like standing out there looking and observing, and I'm over there
Mhm.
next to the sewer and the grass, just like, do I choose the sewer or throw up in the grass? What am I doing here? So I just like, as everyone's looking up, I'm just like puking my brains out real quick, and then go back to looking, and I'm like, nothing ever happened.
Puke and rally, right? You just turn your head, sneak away, go boop. All right, I'm back.
Yep.
Let's go.
Yep. And then it was after that I was like, all right, cool. Well, I will make sure I keep things safe. And that's why whenever the idea behind the Trident bottle dump became a thing, I was like, so I know Wonka Tinks are known for being vicious. And so I was like, two Wonka Tinks for sure.
Brutal.
And so I was like, what is going to be the third? And I was like, I still have half a bottle of each of those solar flares. And I was like, I got to do it. I got to put these together. So I just combined them, and that was the third bottle. But oh, that was a wild ride. I'm glad that I didn't get the ball of hate off of that Trident. Now, I was also surprisingly shocked at how I was definitely freaking out when it happened. But the second I got like not even 30 seconds down the hallway, and all of a sudden it was like the endorphins kicked in finally, and I was like, dude, if I would have just hang tight for 20 more seconds, I would have been riding this thing out. So I ended up just riding it out for a long time, and everyone's checking on me and just answering back. No, nothing
Hmm.
yet. Just still feeling really good right now. So yeah, no, that was
Yeah.
that was pretty wild. And then finally, I got the majority or some of it out. So I had to jump in a cold shower. Same thing. To what you're saying, like the idea of like, can you shock the body?
Your
It's always
body.
been a process and something that I'm definitely going to. I'm definitely going to be experimenting with. I've already kind of lined this up, but it's to get some freshies, get some tink, get a few different options, and then jump in a frozen, one of those with the ice blocks in there, cold plunge. And right
Cold
before I
plunge.
do, I'm gonna just eat a whole bunch of stuff, and then before it fully takes effect in the body and starts to ramp up, I'm just gonna dunk myself and see what happens. Does my
You're
head
gonna donate.
explode?
It's like you're donating your body to science to
Yep.
figure out if this experiment will work. That is hysterical.
It's one of those things. It's like, hey, can I mitigate cramps off of this? That's what I want to know.
That is hysterical. And then you're like, all this torture, and then you're like, all right, I'm gonna do a polar plunge, and then you end up cramping for like a half hour to an hour afterwards. And not only are you polar plunging yourself, but now you're like, well, if it didn't work, back to the drawing board to see what we can do from
Hey,
here.
for science, right? So
Oh, that's hysterical, man.
it's definitely in the cards. It's already laid out. It's just a matter of it happening. I was hoping to do it. The plan was for me to do it this last November, but a whole bunch of things went sideways around that time frame, and
Hmm.
never got to it. I had to kind of dial back from my fun shenanigans within Cap Crew, really kind of
Yeah.
everywhere outside of the podcast. So, yeah,
Hmm.
you know, is what it is.
Yeah. But you did 12 days this year, didn't you? Was that
Yeah,
your first year doing 12 days
yeah,
in the
that
Cap
was.
Crew? So that for people watching that don't know in Cap Crew, so every year during Christmas time, we do 12 days of Christmas, and select few get to do it, and it's one Cap Crew product basically every day. I think that was the first. You did it this year, I think, right?
Yep, yep. That was a lot of fun. I honestly, so I ended up eating just a small bit of that cheese because I'd already had, like I said, being
Joy
lactose
cheese
intolerant. I
is the.
gotta, I gotta like make sure my daily intake is at a certain percentage. Otherwise, it's not so enjoyable. And so I was like, I had already had kind of more than enough cheese for that day, and was already kind of like not feeling great from it. And then the second I opened up, and I was like, I don't know what this is, but let me try it. And I tried it. I was like, oh, it's cheese. Okay. So I ate like I don't know, a quarter or half at the time. And I was like, I'll just stop. And then of course everyone in the chat, no, you gotta finish it. You gotta finish it. And so sure enough, I finished it all. And it wasn't till I think someone had mentioned it in the chat, but I didn't see it in time. It wasn't until I was done and I was, taking down all the lights and everything, and started walking downstairs, and I see that. Well, that was soaked with cap crystals, and I was like, "Oh, okay." And man, I got lucky that night. I did not have any kind of discomfort, no cramps.
Dude, that is brutal.
I think I had more issues from the amount of cheese than from peppers, from kind of heat source, right? So my
Dude, you
wife
got
wasn't happy,
lucky,
my family
man.
wasn't happy, my dog wasn't happy. So
Yeah, because I try to donate something every year to the 12 days. I think this is like 3, 4 years. This year we did. I did the duck taco season, and I just wanted people to like enjoy it, right?
Oh yeah.
Like, and just kind of go through, being able to enjoy it, get some heat with it. And then Bruce came up to me and was like, "Yo, what if you turn this into like a challenge?" And I was like, "Okay, like, but you know how it is in Cap Crew. You go big or you go home, right?" So it was
Yep.
like, I can't just do like half a teaspoon like on. So I was like, all right. So I'm gonna do a full ounce of like the taco seasoning blend, but I have Reaper X Pal from Matt Hill, so I was like, all right, let me hammer in some of this. So I did like a souped up version of it. And I tried some of it like when I was mixing, I was like, okay, like I could see this being like a challenge, but maybe not to some. And I didn't realize like after sending out like how many of them, I was like, damn, I was like, okay, I may have outdone myself here a little bit, but there were a handful of people that were like really having a hard time like getting it down. Now it's an ounce of pow on three tacos.
Yep.
Some people were just throwing right on top like dry. I was like, you can mix it in the meat, but you just got to eat all the meat. But there were some people that couldn't quite get it all down. But man, that's what a ride! And you joke, but man, Cap Crew, there's no getting away. Like if a challenge, it was like, oh, this is a challenge for everybody. Is it really though? Like you go through some of those towns and it's like, damn, some of these are like brutal. Because I
Yeah.
remember me and Rhett were doing one. And Wonka was like, "Well, I need somebody with like mid tea." I toned it down from last year. I remember the first time I tried it, I was like, "Ramen's my nemesis to begin with." Like when it comes to like a challenge, but I was like, "Damn, I couldn't even get it down." It was like a half a bottle of Pow in like ramen, and I was dying. And I was like, can't get through it. And once you start slowing down, it was like it was game over. And I was like, yo, I gotta make sure that I get this down. So then I still had the other half and I was like, I'm determined. And I just started hammering, 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 and I just chugged straight down with the broth, and I was like, oh my gosh, speeding up. But even that Wonka was like, well, I toned it down from last year, and I was like, yo, that was like a smoldering ember in my stomach. It was brutal. I had tears and snot and whatnot coming out from that. But it's like you're saying you toned it down and it's mild, but it's still pretty brutal as far as
Yeah.
a challenge goes. So
Yeah. No, the so to talk about the duck taco pow that you had, absolutely amazing. They had informed us to have tacos ready for that night, and so I just went. Fortunately for me, I think it was on a Tuesday even, so I ended up going to grab half price tacos and nothing special, right? And so I was like, man,
mm-hmm.
these are going to be so boring. I was like, hopefully there's, and then sure enough, that pow was like perfect. It brought all the flavor, brought all the heat. And yeah, I did the same thing. I just put, on top, just didn't really mix it in, obviously. And I ate it that way. And I was like, man, that's really good. And so, like, then I still had probably half of the container left. And so the next day I put, two more tacos, did the same thing. I was like, man, this is
Mm-hmm.
this is freaking amazing. Like this is the perfect blend for those individuals, like whenever you're making tacos for the family and it's like,
That's
oh,
exactly
so and
it.
so
Yep.
can't handle even black pepper in their stuff. It's like, the most boring basic tacos, and now you just brought them back to life with that. So absolutely knocked it out of the park with that stuff.
Appreciate it. And that's just it. It was like thinking about like how much crap is in all those taco blend, packets that you get. It's like half the freaking ingredients you can't even like pronounce, right? So it's like, how good is that crap for you? So then it was just tinkering and mixing and matching and kind of going through, making sure that you have a good cumin base, that chili powder, and just starting blending stuff together until it kind of just honed in. And then it's like, all right, so you got your blend. You want something a little mild, just a little bit of pow on that. You want something a little, okay, we'll just add more. And then like with the challenge, that was like, all right, we're gonna start spooning some pow in as we're mixing this. I think I still got like a half of a mason jar of the pow still left
Nice.
of the actual like challenge itself. Not saying that people need to do a challenge out of it, but you could sprinkle a little bit on a taco. A little bit goes a long way. But
Yeah.
that one had a ton of pow in it. But like you said, when you're doing a challenge, you don't want something that people are just going to sit there and like breeze through. You want people to actually like push themselves when you're creating something like that. So, but just trying to perfect the blend, it was just mix and match kind of ingredients that you would typically look for in your traditional taco without that garbage that they put in all those taco packs. So
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. Well, so I guess we've kind of touched on some of the things that you've been able to accomplish, and we started out talking about some of your crosses and kind of how they've kind of evolved into other products, etc. And one thing that we touched on just briefly was isolating and so on. But for your grow this year, how's everything looking for you? Are you going pretty big, or are you mostly focusing on bringing to future these upcoming generations from these crosses that you have?
so I extended the garden out this year a little bit, and I put a lot of just different stuff. I start everything from seeds, grow tent, the works, but I think I want to say I got over 40 in the ground. I usually do twos of just, everything. I do have a couple like milder ones. Like my father-in-law this year decided not to do like a big garden. So I told him I'd grow him some more milder stuff in the garden and stuff. And then like all my crosses, I want to be able to control because once you put them in the ground, you're really at the beck and call of, temperature, rain, like you have a harder time controlling it. And I found that grow bags tend to be a little bit of a more controlled environment. If I put them out and you're expecting super cold nights, you can pick them bags up, get them in to where, you're not potentially looking at frost and stuff. So a lot of the stuff that I just growing just to grow, I have all in the garden. And then all my crosses I have I have out. They're all in grow bags, and most of them are isolated. So,
Nice.
we talked about the chocolate prima tali, orange bootla, which we talked a little bit off screen that Jaws came up with the name sabotage for the pepper. So I have those. They're all in 10-gallon grow bags. They're all isolated. I have the grow nets on top of them. uh, the Dragon Tali, which was one of my big first ones when I started like into really getting into crosses, which was that chocolate prima Tali, and I crossed the Dragon's Breath into that one, and that one is definitely not for the faint of heart. It
Oh
is
yeah.
definitely wicked. Um, and then as I started taking those Dragon Tallies, I took last year was the first year I took Troy's Big Mustard Mama and I crossed that into a Dragon Tolly. So that was a first grow, and some of those pods, man, they were as big as like my hand. So you're still getting some
Yep.
of the genetics of those Dragon Tollies, but man, they had some of the big time genetics of the Big Mustard Mama. I have that one, which I did. Um, I had a random one that I didn't even try. I had a KSLS, right?
Hmm.
And I had it next to Maruga. I'm pretty sure it's a Maruga that I had it next to. And I got these massive yellow, vibrant KSLS pods, but I, dude, these pods were like 20, 22 gram pods. I had
Man.
some that were as big as my palm last year, and I was like, well, I'm pretty sure that the Marugas crossed it because you know how it is. Like KSLS is they're like tiny, like little saucer pods. These pods are so meaty. So I was like, all right. So I have those growing in isolation, and I have one that I'm working on this year that only a handful have known about, but I guess no better time. I'm still anxious to see if the cross took. So the sense of being on edge. I did get pods to grow out of it after cross pollinating it, so I'm really hoping that it takes. But I took bubblegum apocalypse and I crossed it into a beast pepper.
Oh.
So I'm anxious to see. So hoping that it knows because the beast peppers are pretty distinctive and understanding. I'm hoping that maybe some of those bubblegum genetics from that bubblegum apocalypse, take with the beast. But like you said, when you cross pollinate and those pods grow out, you don't know if they're going to take the next year. So now it's a waiting game for me. I got them out, I got them isolated, I got the nets up, but hopefully by July here. It's been pretty cold and rainy here, so everything's kind of off to a slower start. We're finally going to get low to mid 80s. We should be almost to near 90 here on Thursday. Humidity pick back up, so I'm hoping that they really start to take off. But I have a handful of plants. I have a handful of plants that I have. They're in 10-gallon grow bags and isolated. So we'll see, man. We'll see. So it's kind of a waiting game because you don't know. Everybody just thinks, oh, you crossed it and the pods are going to grow out, but you got to save that pod and hope that the
Yep.
genetics kind of force themselves into the pod. But that's what I wanted to do with it. I wanted to take that bubblegum apocalypse and cross it into the beast because the beast is the pod that the plant that grew out. So if those bubblegum traits take over on that beast, then I know that cross will take. So we got a couple months here until we truly see, but if not, then I got a crap ton of beast plants going. So no harm, no foul. But then it's back to the drawing board. But a lot of the stuff that I'm doing this year, I was trying to really, a lot of the stuff that I was trying to look into when I was kind of coming up with my grow now. Now that I'm kind of really enhancing, some of this like cross pollination and trying to create new pods and stuff. Um, what am I growing this year, and what could I get creative to grow out and potentially cross, for future, next year. So we'll see. Not everything takes, and that's the part of the problem when you're trying to cross pollinate this is it takes a lot of damn patience to really see because not everything is successful when you're growing it out. So
Yeah.
it's tough, but that's kind of the thought process in when I take out what's in my garden and what's in the ground. That's what I'm going to use to kind of try to cross and figure out my crosses for. But I think in total, I got over maybe 60. I think I got about 60 plants, all together. I have about 40 some in the ground. And like I said, the stuff that I crossed are all in grow bags kind of around the garage and the garden, isolated so that I can kind of control and prevent those cross pollination
Yeah.
of other pods into it. So,
No, that's super cool, and I think that the idea of a bleeding beast is going to be insane. Second of all, the Dragon Tally cross to the Big Mustard Mama, I was absolutely blown away by how that one hit. That nice, fast up front, very edgy type of initial burn, and then that Dragon Tally ramp up towards the back. That
Hmm.
that had the it had a very nice, so with the sabotage, it was very fast, it was very intense, and with the Dragon Tally, it was intense, but then it really ramped up and it lingered. So
And it
with
kind of goes in waves. So that dragon tally is weird because, like, it climbs, and then you're like, all right, am I good? And then it climbs, and then it kind of climbs just a little bit more. So you kind of go in through those waves with the dragon tally. I never expected it to kind of hit as hard as it did, but I don't know if it's some of those oily genetics of the chocolate primotali that come out, but I mean the dragon breath is no joke in itself. So you're just taking two absolutely vicious pods and duking it out. Unfortunately, it's in your mouth when they're duking it out, but it just kind of goes in waves and like kind of ramping in a sense. But you know, the Dragon Tali will always have a soft place in my heart just because it's been like that's that's my first cross that actually took. That's the one that kind of got me more intrigued and more peeking into some of those cross breeding the peppers. So now that I've kind of gotten a sense of it, that one was the start for me. That one will always have a near and dear place to my heart. And I've kind of grown it out a handful of years now, so I'm hoping to share it with other people. I'm hoping to share it with other people. I just didn't want to give something out as far as seeds, and then all of a sudden, you're like, oh my gosh, well, this isn't what it looked like. I want to stabilize it a little bit, so I'm hoping if the genetics stay on it this year, then next year maybe I'll start letting people just grow it and let the first duck creation go out and go public. Plus, it helps too. Once you start growing out and you only have so much, you got to find people that you can trust in maybe helping you grow. And Cap Crew was a good sense of that. And it's no joke. No news to some people, but Mike Feeney's helping me grow out this year. Him and I talked about different stuff, and he's got some pots and stuff like that. So allowing me to expand a little bit, but when you're trying to do some of those crosses, it's finding a little bit of a hard time to find people that you can truly trust that aren't just going to take what you have and just start kind of screwing you over in a sense. So,
Yep.
Feeney and I have talked for a while, and he's a really good guy, and he's going to grow a lot of this stuff out for me too. So, if something doesn't necessarily grow, or I'm stuck where like I get a damage from bad storms and stuff like this, it's like, man, now I got to go back to the drawing board. It's just nice to have somebody else help. He understands like the isolation process of it and stuff like that. So, it's starting to expand a little bit on some of these different pods that you go. And
Yep.
ultimately, I want more people to just enjoy. I'm not out to try to make a big name for pods or whatever. I just want the community to have fun and enjoy them in a sense, right?
Yep.
I'm just out here to have fun and do it. So hopefully I can get some of these seeds, let people start growing some of this stuff out. you know I'm not out to make a profit off of it or anything like that. Let people enjoy them. Let people grow them. Let people see the brutality that comes with some of the duck creations.
Yep.
It's the next one in line that I'm kind of curious to see if we can stabilize a little bit is that sabotage pod, because to find a roaring super super hot pod, but not compromising the flavor of like an orange pod, or not getting that bitterness and floralness that you get from some of those super hot. So
Yep.
hopefully the Dragon Tolly, I'll be able to get out and let people, grow, and then hopefully the Sabotage will only be shortly behind it, and then like a trickle effect as some of these other ones start growing, just letting people enjoy peppers. That's what this community should be about, is letting people enjoy and just have fun, and just have fun with it. So
Yep. And to spark that motivation, to spark that drive, to continue on the future legacies and future generations of chili heads. And I think it's also very fun, playful, and ironic how you just kind of explain that, because being the duck man himself and talking about all these different crosses, it's like you're gearing up now for one to leave the pack, and then the next duck is up, and you're gonna gear it up to leave the pack, and you're just slowly watching them fly off and spread their wings and do their thing. So I thought that was pretty cool. Also, very fitting to speak to the Dragon Tally on how it just ramps up and it has that kind of like die off moment and then build back up and die off moment. It's very suiting that you named it Dragon Tally, because you know depending if you read a lot of mythical lore and all this other stuff, right? Dragons can die and then rise again, i.e., how they kind of get tied to the words, the phoenix, right? So it's kind of like it dies, or so you think, and then it rises again, then it dies, then it rises again. So fun little playful way to view that one there. But
and
yeah,
and I
no,
didn't I didn't even really think about it. I was like, all right, how can I just play on the two peppers and kind of come? So you have a dragon's breath and you have a primo tally. Okay, a dragon tally's just seems fitting, almost like a play on words. And we were talking back, and I was like, just kind of having fun with it a little bit, and we were talking back, and seems kind of fit into to lead into the sabotage sauce that Jaws and I collaborated on a little bit. But he was talking about every sauce that he's made has always just been a mix of just different pods, and he's like, I was like, yo, I was like, I trust you, I have all these extra, pods. I was like, yo, I can send you boxes of whatever you want to do. And he's like, all right. He's like, you'd be willing to do that? I was like, heck yeah, let's collaborate. So him and I were kind of like in the mood for like pizza sauce, like Italian kind of to vibe. So I said, if we're gonna do it, let's do it right, right? So it was like, I give you full, full reins. Like this is you. I was like, if you're gonna be making the sauce and we're gonna be collaborating, free reins to for you to name the pod, all you, right? Like whatever, right? Um, so he was thinking on. He's like, let me think about it. Let me think, and he rattled off some. And he was like, yo. He's like, what if you name it sabotage, right? And I was like, okay, like, and there you go, yep. So you go. So everybody associates it with the Beastie Boys, but he's like, yo, think about this. It's an orange pod, and people think that they're getting off easy by eating an orange pod. But he goes, it's so ripping hot. He goes, it literally sabotages people. So he's like, we'll launch the sauce, and he's like, we were kind of talking about this last summer already. Obviously, as I was sending him just boxes of pods, I dehydrated some of the peppers and stuff like that and sent it to him. I was like, let's wait a little bit. He was like, maybe after Christmas, holiday settled down. So then him and I, after the holidays, were really like honing in on like, what would pair well with like what. So he wanted the Italian sauce, but then on Cap Crew, when he was doing the little teasers about like leading in, I was like, damn, this is freaking awesome. He was like, he was like, we're gonna launch the name of the pepper, and then we're gonna launch the name of the sauce. And man, he outdid himself because the labels on those are like it's like a comic book label, right? Like
Yep.
the old pod. And I actually have it sitting here. It's actually funny we're talking about it, but he uh he came up with some pretty cool designs and stuff like that. I even had it made out into to a shirt, like some of the pods with it, and just kind of looking off. But
Yep.
man, he outdid himself. He sent me a handful of like different like designs that he did because I was like, man, the labels are so awesome, but like I don't want to get like a label print on it. He's like, dude, I got some stuff for you. So we were going back and forth, but you know, he come up with the design for it and stuff like that, and we launched the name of the pepper this year. So, it was pretty awesome to segue into it, and just to hear the awesome feedback that we've gotten on, just the sauce itself, and just it's not. It's definitely not for the mild. It's definitely geared more towards the chili heads, like anything we do in Cap Crew, right? It's
Oh yeah.
anything's more geared towards the chili heads. But man, that sabotage pot and that just rips in the sauce. So I don't know.
Very nice.
Did he send you a bottle? Have you tried it
No,
yet?
I haven't even tried it yet. I know the pepper's beautiful. It's a masterpiece. Absolutely, all the best notes you could ever ask for in a pepper are there. Now, I can
So
imagine it's going to be about the same in that sauce.
yeah, so but it's more geared towards so we like the tomato paste, like the Italian vibe in it. They said you can't have you can't have Italian sauce without a little basil in it, right? So
Yep.
we were going back. I have a stash here. I'll send you a bottle.
Okay.
Uh, I'll send you a bottle so that you can rip into it. The heat level is definitely up there with some of the hottest. So we say all natural, obviously no uh, capsaicin like from like your extracts and stuff like that. It's just
Yep.
straight pepper. But man, it's a ripper. It's hot. When he sent it to me, I was like, all right. It was like it smells amazing, and I took like a spoonful. I was like, damn. I was like, okay. I was like, it's definitely hot. I was like, all right. I think we got ourselves some here, but there's no compromise to the flavor of it. But taking some mozzarella sticks and dipping. Well, not for you in a sense. Now that I know you're lactose intolerant, but
In
you know,
moderation. The main thing that wrecks me is like milk or straight ice cream. Like that wrecks me the hardest. Cheese, I just have to do like I have to watch how much I'm intaking for the day. Otherwise, it's problematic. So,
I would be so lost without cheese. Like I could do away with milk, but like cheese is just one of those. Like give me just a whole block of Cooper Sharp and let me eat a whole block of Cooper Sharp cheese. But man, I don't know.
I spent
Pizza's
so
just
many
one of
years
those
kind of
things.
doing stuff like that and just eating the block of cheese and then hating myself for it and not understanding why I hated myself for it. And then finally I learned, and yeah, now I just know. I kind of know my limits for the day. I can start to feel it in my stomach first before anything else, and then after that, I'm like, all right, I'll
Hmm.
just one or two more bites, and I'll back off on that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's no, I'm excited to check that out. That sounds like a lot of fun and definitely a scorcher of a sauce. It sounds like, I mean, obviously with it being Italian inspired, it sounds like it would go great with like lasagna or some kind of pasta dish as
Hmm.
well. So definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'll be
Hopefully
sure
my
to get you a
garden
bottle.
holds together. I had a whole bunch of wild. They've kind of been here for the last year or two, but they haven't really been bad wild rabbits, and so
Uh,
I didn't put up the barrier in time, and they got to the majority of my Superhots whenever they were like starting out, and just they ate the tops off completely, and now most of the plants are dead or really struggling. So it'll
uh,
be an interesting year. I got like four that are outside that are just struggling. We'll see if anything happens with them. If it does, it's a blessing. If not, whatever. I'm gonna go ahead and start next week. A few, probably start maybe 4 for inside, and just solely keep
Hmm.
them indoors, just so I have some kind of freshies on hand for the season and postseason fun. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, you can come knocking on my door come mid to late summer. I'm sure I'll have plenty of fresh pods to go around. So,
nice.
but if you have like wild rabbits and stuff too, one of the things that I had them years back before I did like the actual garden. I had them up along just my garage, and I started maybe like 5 6 plants, but I had them, and I got like the urine spray that they
Oh,
sell,
yep.
like the fox urine, and man, them suckers did not come near the garden, did not come near the garden when I started spraying, and then obviously with expanding and growing out, I mean I have pretty decent, you know, fencing and all that stuff, but with wild animals, you got to sometimes just be creative
Yep.
because we have
Now that you
squirrel
say that too,
problems
that's
up
around the
here.
same time that I stopped seeing the foxes. Was about the time that the rabbits were showing up, because there was a few
Hmm.
times that I would walk out in the backyard, because like I'd let the dog out at night and go out there, and it I wouldn't always turn on the floodlights because I didn't want to like up agitate the neighbors, right? And so
Yeah,
there was a few times I'd walk out there and like I know my dog's over here, and all of a sudden I hear something rustling over by the fig tree in the corner, and I'm like,
yeah, yeah.
the heck is this? And I click on the floodlights, and this skinny little fox just takes off and is gone. And I'm like, oh gosh, here we go. So after that, it was like always kind of, if he goes out at night, the lights are on, I'm kind of taking a look. But he's the
Hmm.
same. It's like, I love him to death. Greatest dog ever. Love him to death. Part of the family. But man, oh man, is he not a dog? He might as well be a human, because he sees the rabbits and he's like, whatever, just go over here. And the same thing, we have a whole bunch of horned-toed lizards, and like some of these suckers are
Hmm.
big, and
Yeah,
he's not even phased by him. He's like, I'll just go sleep next to it. Like, dude, what are you doing?
that's funny. That's funny because my dog is polar opposite. She could sense somebody like 5 feet from our house and is just barking, 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 barking. It's like, man, we know we're safe because ain't nobody ever getting in this house without this dog knowing. It's like she's the nosiest thing ever, and she barks, 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 barks. It's like, oh, we got ourselves a guard dog at
Yep.
least.
Well, that's the thing is, Bentley will bark whenever he's inside to anything that's outside. But if it's another animal,
Mm.
he's like, whatever, don't care. If it's a human, he's like, he will not stop until it's either no longer in proximity or what, however he's detecting. And he's like, just
Hmm.
barking. There'll be times where I'll be either putting up like my plates or whatever, and all of a sudden I hear barking just consistently during like a lunchtime frame. I'm like, what the heck's going on? And then, 5 minutes later, ding dong, it's a mailman dropping something off. I'm like, all right, all right. So you pick and choose. That's exactly what you're
Yeah,
doing right now. But
yeah, yeah.
no, it's man. I said we were gonna kind of dive a little bit deeper. I mean, we did, but we didn't really get too far off topic because there's still so much to catch up on. But
Oh my gosh, dude,
oh,
100%, man. It feels like every time we catch up, it's like just we just keep going and going and going. It's like almost like just normal conversation about two guys that just absolutely are infatuated with the chili head community and whatnot, man. It's always fun. So
yeah,
appreciate it.
no, definitely. But we'll definitely have to run this one back and have you on, and we'll start talking about hobbies and interests and things with the family, etc. All the other fun stuff. But you know, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. We'll love to have you back. So definitely feel free anytime that you're interested to jump on in, and we will make an episode happen.
Sounds great, man. I appreciate it. Appreciate it.
Jake, thanks so much for coming on. It was an absolute blast having you on here, diving deeper into not only what you've been able to accomplish with your crosses, but also the new products that you have been able to collaborate on, and looking forward to what the future brings. If you want to keep up with Jake Cole, I will have direct links down below for socials so you can keep in touch with him, as well as you know, if you enjoyed what was going on here with the podcast, please leave me a review if you're on any of the platforms that allow reviews for the podcast, as well as share this out with other like-minded chili heads or individuals that are just curious about the world of hot, because this is where you can find everything to do with the world of hot. And wanted to give a quick shout out for all of those who have been rocking and rolling along this time. I have some great updates coming for not only the podcast, but also for the webpage. It's going to be extremely resourceful for all of those that are watching, listening, wanting to keep up with the guests that are coming on, what they have going on, products that have been reviewed, etc., and much more fun stuff there. But for now, you can still head on over to the website to check out the official merch store, as well as become a citizen of Swear Nation. And want to give a quick shout out to the sponsors. So podvision.io, if you're looking to grow your brand, start your brand, you hit a bump in the road, you're trying to figure things out, highly recommend checking out podvision.io for all of your needs, as well as webdx.one. If you have an online website, maybe you don't have a website, maybe you had somebody, you've lost contact with them, maybe your website's just not a great representation of you and your amazing business. Highly recommend checking out webdx.one for all of those needs. I'm Brandon Swear, and from everything from the world of hot, this has been The Swear Word.